Welcome back to CDBG Advisory Board Commission meeting. We're in the process of conducting interviews with social service applicants. So let's have the next applicant, please.
The next agency is Committee for Armenian Students in Public Schools, CAST, for the Intervention Prevention Clinical Group Counseling.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Arsina Hovanesyan. I'm the Executive Director of CASPS, and I'd like to introduce Ms. Jill Firstman, Teacher Specialist at Columbus Elementary School, and Mrs. Laura Atoyan, Board Member of CASPS. First of all, thank you so much for listening to us, for asking us questions about our program. And we're very thankful that we've been able to conduct this program for the past 7 years at Columbus and 4 years at Keppel with great results. And there is really limitless potential as to what we can do for these kids to redirect antisocial behavior at a young age, to prevent at an early, to start preventing, intervening and preventing so that their problems don't escalate once they get to middle school and high school. So we're proud of our program, and we thank you for supporting us all these years. And I'd like to ask Ms. Firstman to tell you, to tell you her story, because she works firsthand with the teachers, the parents, the students, and she's been working with this program since the first day. So, Ms. Firstman?
Good morning. I want to first apologize for my attire, as it is Friday Spirit Day, and I'm in charge of student council, so I have to set the model and be in my Columbus t-shirt. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here today. I have had the wonderful experience of being involved with the CASPS program for the last 7 years, all of the years that they've been at Columbus. And my first experience with CASPS was as a kindergarten teacher. I was a kindergarten teacher for 5 years, and so I understand the need for early intervention. Academics has continually increased in kindergarten. It used to be that all of kindergarten was about socialization and learning social skills. Now they must be reading and writing multiple sentences by the time they leave kindergarten. With the increase in academic rigor in kindergarten, there's a decrease in time for social skills. There's actually also an increase in the lack of social skills in the children that arrive at our schools. We are finding more and more special needs children that are unidentified coming to school in kindergarten. It takes many months to get them identified, and they have some very out of control behavior at an early age. Over the 5 years as a kindergarten teacher, I have noticed a definite increase in these negative behaviors of incoming students who have no idea what to do or how to handle someone saying no, students who don't know how to take turns, students who don't know how to solve a problem, and who don't know how to listen and follow directions. I have seen the success of the program firsthand by referring students and being in close communication with the counselors that would pull my students. They would ask me what the needs are of the students. I would fill out beginning surveys and exit surveys to show so that we can communicate about the growth that they've made through the program, and had huge successes in increasing their ability to listen, follow directions, and solve problems. I have now moved to a new position as teacher specialist, and I focus on at-risk children. So now I'm the coordinator of CASPS at my school, and I'm really happy to have the experience as a teacher because I know how many different types of issues can be helped by this program. I sat in SST, Student Study Team meetings yesterday. This is when a teacher brings a student of concern to a team, including the psychologist, the principal, the speech therapist, and the special RSP teacher. And 2 students were recommended yesterday. One who had been newly diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, which is something that we're hearing more and more about, and another that needs to learn about taking turns and needs to learn how to solve a problem without using their hands or their feet to solve a problem. So we have, I think 28 or 29 students at Columbus. It's hugely successful. Many teachers see it as a resource. Many teachers refer students to the program. I also refer students to the program. I happen to be the one who wears the hat of discipline. So I am able to see where some issues are when I'm on the playground and what children might benefit. I also have the benefit of seeing those students that I had in kindergarten now as a 4th grader or a 5th grader. And they are not 100%, but 80% better and becoming more responsible, becoming more confident, able to solve problems. Some of them are even now on ASB with me and are now student leaders. And these are students who couldn't listen and follow directions. They were crawling on the floor in kindergarten. They came with no boundaries or routines. So I've seen a huge benefit. I'm a big proponent of early intervention because of this. I know that studies show by the age of 4th grade and 5th grade, students, it's been proven that students, it's already been determined whether or not they will develop at-risk behaviors at that age. And if we can increase social skills and increase problem-solving skills, we are most definitely decreasing those at-risk behaviors for them and teaching them the skills that they need to combat the difficulties of middle school and high school at this time in our day and age. I wish that the program could be in every school in the state of California, especially my heart goes to Glendale. I would love to see it more widespread. Mr. Ledesma, who did my position at Columbus for many years, is now at Edison, and he would love to have it because many times you do everything you can when you're trying to work with discipline and problem solving with a student, and you just don't have anywhere to turn, and it's wonderful to have this resource as another intervention for these troubled students. It's also very important. We have 78% of our students that are socially, economically disadvantaged. So that means 77% of our students are considered poor and receive a free or reduced lunch. So many of these parents are not able to provide these resources to their students, and many of them don't know where to turn. So this is also a wonderful opportunity to share these skills with parents. We've also developed a parenting class, and we at our school will teach some of the problem-solving skills that the counselors are teaching the students, so that we have the families also involved in this intervention for their children.
Thank you. Well, having children at a young age myself, I completely can relate to this, and I think we're dealing with a lot of issues that we didn't have when we were children. The social skills now is games and TV. Even midnight you can turn on and the TV and you can see cartoon, and it's amazing that some at certain homes,
yes,
that's normal.
Yes.
And having programs like this that families can depend on and children's can benefit from, and the early intervention to prevent that negative behaviors that will grow into something even more bigger and troublesome in the future is a key. So early intervention, and you mentioned that. I think we visited your program. You're at school, and
yes,
you were there, and
yes,
I was very impressed with the type of service and the benefits that these students get with your involvement, and you have a psychologist on staff and all of that. My only question is, you said that this program is for everyone at school, but the name says Committee for Armenian Students in Public Schools. Would this create kind of a barrier, or does this alienate non-Armenians to participate in your program?
It doesn't. In my experience. I have on occasion had a parent over the years ask, why does it say Armenian on here? And there's just one place or two places on the form, and I say that this is how we get the money, but it's for all children. We want to help and benefit all children, and so does this group that helps us to get the funding for this wonderful program. And I say we're one of 2 schools in Glendale. We are so fortunate to have this, and it is to benefit any student at our school that needs the intervention.
Thank you. I could start with Mr. Oganessian. Do you have any questions?
Just one question.
Sure.
It seems it's a wonderful program. I was there. We spoke. It's a wonderful program. But the problem is, I think it's more from the home itself than from the children. Am I correct?
Yes.
Are we doing anything? Is the program doing anything to help out actually the household and where these children are being raised, and
You know what?
the actual cause of the problem?
Yes. It's not the total cause of the problem. It is definitely a part of the problem, and that's kind of where I come in, because I am the one who's communicating with parents, all of these 28 and more, when there's a problem and when there's a new skill learned. I'm communicating, I'm asking parents, please use the language that we're using, that the counselors are using. For instance, just yesterday, there was an autistic child who cussed at his teacher. It was extremely inappropriate, but he did not really have control, and he is one of the students involved in the program, and I spoke with the mom just today for over 20 minutes to say, these are the strategies that we're using in counseling, these are the strategies that I'm using when he visits me in the office, and I would really like you to use this language. Instead of using this bad word when you're angry, let's say, I'm really upset, I'm really frustrated. He needs to replace that word in his vocabulary with something else. And that's what the counseling group is working on, that's what I'm working on, the teacher's working on, and then I ask the parent to join in, and I don't always know if they do, but I am communicating to the parents. And I know there is a percentage of parents that are really here and ready to work with us. There are some parents that are in denial, and they don't think that they need to change at all, and we do what we can during those hours to teach the children these skills and these boundaries.
The parenting workshops, is that something that...
Yes, we had a 6-week parenting workshop, a lot about routines and limit setting and problem solving. We had a 6-week session in the fall, and we're starting another one at the end of this month, another 6-week session, and parents were very enthusiastic about learning things. They were saying things like, I can't get my child to go to bed. And we were saying, you're the parent, you have to set a routine, you have to tell, if you say it's time to go to bed, they may go to bed. Teaching them that it was okay to parent their child this way, in a loving but firm way. So we're doing everything on our end to really address the whole child.
Thank you. Mr. Sinania, do you have any questions?
Welcome back. One of the great programs in the city of Glendale. I didn't visit you this year, but I think a long time ago, like about 10 years ago before I was on this board, I was invited to be a guest speaker at, I think it was a graduation ceremony at CASPS. Having said that, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm worried, but I've been worried the whole day because of the numbers again. In your particular case, it states that the amount requested represents 47% of your total budget. And also, I'm reading notes in the application says that the requested amount will be spent on direct services to the students implementing the clinical group counseling program at Columbus Keppel Muir is indeed contingent on receiving funding from CDBG. All right, so last year you asked for approximately the same amount, but you were only approved for $26,717. What was the impact? What happened?
Never made it to the 30.
You didn't make it. Which is what you told us, I think, last year. That's what's going to happen.
We can't serve 3 schools with that amount. So we just stayed at Keppel and Columbus. And I wanted to say, I'm sorry, the Keppel at-risk assistant principal also wanted to be here, but she had a workshop all day today, so she couldn't make it. So we were at 2 schools. And unfortunately, with that funding, we can't go on to a 3rd school in order to do a whole 30-week program.
And has that changed for this year? If you receive less than what you asked for, and it's safe to assume significantly less what you asked for. And the reason I say that, again, I'm going to point out, 35% cut over last year, this year.
Yeah.
So it's much worse this year. What's going to happen to you? I mean, what's the are you looking for alternative funding?
Going to have Mrs. Atoyan answer the funding.
Thank you.
As you know, the program costs nearly $100,000 for 3 schools. So we're always trying to get alternative funding. However, the economy being what it has been, you must know that it's pretty impossible. So we do the best we can, but at least when we do a program, we do it fully, and we do it without cutting any corners. As far as this year's funding is concerned, if we get even less than what we got last year, once again, we will have to limit ourselves to 2 schools. And this is really the unfortunate part, because the demand is great and the funding is just not there. And for us to do a, bad job, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do a lesser program and go to many schools.
Thank you. Mr. Cornell?
Yes, I want to thank you and the ladies also, and I can see the kind of commitment that you people have, which is why I see such outstanding goals
Thank you.
that
We
are achieved
appreciate
here.
it.
So hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Wanted to ask, as I was reading in the packet here, particularly on page 11, of the suspensions that for the year of 208, 209,
Yes.
had about 10 or 16%?
16%.
Now, how many of those suspensions were students that were involved in your program? Do you have an idea?
I have no idea because that is confidential. All I know is statistics. I have no names. I cannot.
That's the only thing I have. Have to commend you for being in the financial straitjacket that we put
Yes,
you
we
in
are.
last
Thank you.
year, and how you're able to utilize your funds to the best of your ability
you.
getting to the students. So,
Thank you. We wiggle out of it most of the time, but only with 2 schools. Just so you remember, the cost per student per hour is $10. And there's no way you could get this kind of service for $10 an hour anywhere. So it's worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we can go to the next organization.
Okay, the next organization is Catholic Charities of Los Angeles, Inc. for Loaves and Fishes Homeless Prevention Program.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Moeed Khan. I'm with Catholic Charities. I'm the regional director. It's been my privilege to be associated with City of Glendale since 80s. We opened first Loaves and Fishes in 1984. That's where now Americana is, and that's where we started. And bring back some of these memories. I still remember that when we first opened Loaves and Fishes, there was a lot of criticism that why are we opening this food pantry when the city of Glendale tended to be pretty affluent. But over the years, with the partnership with the city, we have grown and served a considerable amount of people. It's a safety net program. Last year when I was here before you, and I said in my 32 years with Catholic Charities, that was one of the roughest and toughest, difficult year to deal with the economy, the way economy was, the way people were hurting, losing their homes and so on and so forth. Sad to say that it really hasn't changed that much. You know, the loaves and fishes continue to serve around 3,000 people. More and more people are coming back. We are very grateful for the funding that we get for the case management, plus the funding we get from the ESG that help people stabilize their home situation and help us. What we do is we parlay that kind of funds and work. Laura is the case manager and the program coordinator. She works with other organizations, the Salvation Army, Shelter Partnership, and the churches to supplement the funds that are needed. So we consistently have outperformed our expectations because the needs are there. Under best of circumstances, people are hurting, but when the economy is as it is now, it gets even worse and more challenging. So we are very grateful for all the support we have received over the years, and we hope that you will continue to support us. And if you have any question, Laura and I will be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. We are familiar with the work you do, and I really applaud you for what you do. Clearly, it's a vital service in our community, and it has a high priority in our list. Having said that, I will start with one of our commissioners, Mr. Oganessian, please.
You know, we were there. We looked at the facility. It is wonderful. The facility is open 7 days a week?
5 days.
5 days a week. And how many families take advantage of the facility?
Roughly, we serve about 3,000.
Non-cost, right, to families?
Unduplicated. And then people can come back every 30 days. And for the case management, there is an ongoing, person comes in and there may be multiple problems. And they may having to deal with the landlord. They may have to do with other situation, going and looking for a job or coordinating with other agencies. So a client may come more often. But the food part is we try to help them. Homeless people can come every 10 days, and if the families can come around after every 30 days.
One last question. Actually, all of the request is basically for payroll. Where's the food coming from? Is that
the food comes from our donors, churches, from the supermarkets. We also get used to be called FEMA money, and now called ESFP funds that the Catholic Charities gets, and then they are distributed to our different locations. So there is. We have a pretty good supply system about the food and the clothing.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cornell?
Hi, Mr. Khan. Nice to have you back. Each time, I have an opportunity to visit you on the site overview. It's just marvelous to see your efficiency and that of your staff from the little that you have, and how much you take care of the population that comes before you. And I know from last year that you've had a good size increase. Just a kudos to you and your staff for a beautiful job you're doing. And I think that was about all I had. If you know the percentage of increase that you have over last year?
About 30%.
We also want to like to thank, this is the staff you're looking at, but we are very grateful for our volunteers, very dedicated volunteers who pick up the slack. Without the volunteers, we will be really up the creek.
Great. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I missed 30% was with regards to what question? I didn't hear, Mr. Cornell.
30% increase for people requesting food and
Really?
Financial services.
Just over 1 year period?
From last year.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, I have a question about your finances this year. I see that you've served 139, and I guess the projected number was 200. So there is some funding left. You're still using up CDBG funds for this
Yes.
year, for this current year.
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is because we have some money that's come back from another project that's going to be available for this year. And I'm just, for you and also my fellow committee members, just pointing that out, and want to ask you, do you have a need for a few $1,000s?
We can certainly use more.
Yes.
Certainly, yes. Absolutely affirmative.
And that would allow you to do what? To take in more people, to serve more people
yeah.
with more frequency?
The biggest problem right now facing us is the eviction notices and utilities.
Okay.
And that is the predominant. The food-wise and clothing-wise, we are able to help people, but when hard cash involving utilities and the rent is concerned, we can certainly use more.
But let me ask staff a question about that. Some of the purposes that Mr. Khan just listed, utilities and such, not necessarily stuff that's related to food. Would that be covered by their last year's proposal? Is that even an issue? If we were to allocate, the Rosie Goes to Wall Street, or part of Rosie Goes to Wall Street's funds to Catholic charities, Loaves and Fishes?
Mr. Sinani, I believe, yes, you can allocate it to the Loaves and Fishes programs for some specific line item that say it is eligible to use for utility assistance and basically homeless prevention. I think the committee's done that before, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago.
So is it a good idea to ask them now to designate how they would like monies, any additional monies they receive for this fiscal year to be used now, so that you guys can leave and don't have to worry about coming back and telling us?
Yes.
I'm not clear about the question. You're asking...
Because the RFP has asked for, I guess they submitted a proposal for this year's, the money that was available this year. So we're talking about last year's proposal. They must have designated for specific purposes. Now, the additional monies, if we were to allocate them to Loaves and Fishes Catholic charities, I want to make sure that either that's covered by their last year's proposal, or if it's not, that we can go ahead and allocate it to them anyway. And Mr. Carrillo's response was, we can designate that money for a specific reason. We have that option. So I'm asking them to do that right now, so that when they leave, we know if we decide to allocate that additional funding to them, what we're allocating it to.
But I thought it would be allocated for the 11-12, correct?
It is current year funding.
For the current
yes, current year. So they do operate a current year Loaves and Fishes program. So that funds would be, if that's the committee's decision to allocate that to Loaves and Fishes, mainly for the utility assistance and the homeless prevention, eviction assistance, it would be a current year program which they would have to expend by June 30th, which I believe they can. I guess
the city has done that in the past too. And see, there's a designated funds. So oftentimes there's a perception when they're designated, they have to be spent the way it's specified.
That may not be a bad idea, but looking at the project funds awarded and expended, I think, you still have a large number to spend. I mean, out of 42, you spent 14. So I think...
So for the CDBG, there are two funding, which the other part we spend on utilities is ESG, which is we're not talking about today. But CDBG is all committed funds. We have a plan, the money is going to be spent.
Right, I understand that, yeah.
I'm not saying we allocate the money to them or not allocate the money. All I'm saying is that in case we do want to take that route, which wouldn't be out of the extraordinary since they are as frontline as it gets, so that we know what we're allocating it to. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Mr. Cornell, do you have any questions?
Yeah. To me, on that proposal, what we allocate is for you to use on a basis that serves the people that come in to see you for this need. And part of the expenses and funding that we give you also includes, you know, your overhead for the electricity, gas, and so on.
Yes.
To me personally, in property management, that would be micromanaging to tell you that you have to do it this way or so on, rather than leave it up to your capable staff, which you have there, to do it in the means that you have seen fit over the years that you've been doing this. And that's been for quite some time now, and I don't have it down, but I know you've been around the community for quite some time here.
Yes.
So this member would have a difficult time being able to have that restriction on you for that purpose, rather than overall just handling everything as you're doing at this time. So
I'm not sure we can do that. Can we do that? Can we just open-endedly say we're allocating it to loaves and fishes without saying what it's being allocated for? Or do we just say whatever their proposal was for last year, that's where the money goes?
Yes, you can.
But even
you
then,
can
we
do
would
both.
have, that's still designation. I mean, we end up designating to last year's proposal.
Yes, I mean, I guess the caveat would be that you want the money to be utilized for expanded services. And of course, that's one of our criteria, so that more expanded services, and not to meet necessarily a funding gap, but one of the criteria certainly is to expand services. So if they're expanding it, either providing additional case management hours or providing homeless prevention assistance for utility assistance, then yes, you can generally say it's for an expanded services.
They have expanded 30%, correct?
I'm sorry.
Have expanded 30%. You have seen an increase of 30% in your...
And that's also is especially in the area of rent and utilities, it's even higher because sometimes you just don't have the funds.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yes.
The $14,000 that was mentioned, is that the balance that you have for the ESG?
I have 14,000 spent so far, and there is a pending invoice. So out of 42,000 that was awarded, you have, you have spent 14 and served. And
42 for ESG?
We don't have any ESG in front of us.
No,
ESG
it's
is
not.
available
No,
to
that's
us.
nothing to do. Yeah, no, the funds,
That's the
they
regular
will be all
funds.
spent.
Yeah, okay.
yes, Okay.
I'm sure of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next agency is All for Health, Health for All, Inc., for the Youth Health Services Project.
Okay, I guess they are not here. Can we move to the next one, please?
Okay, the next agency is City of Glendale Public Library for mobile library services.
Good morning. I'm Teresa Robinette, a Senior Library Supervisor for Children's Services for the Glendale Public Library, here to talk to you about mobile services. We've had a very rocky year. We had a grant award from you last year, and we're all set to go with the Head Start site. When 2 days before the opening of school, the Head Start management company pulled out and closed the site down. We were constantly assured that they were coming back, About November, it was very clear they were not going to come back. In fact, they still are not back at their site. They're running the program in individual homes. They do come to the Central Library for socialization visits once a month, but we take care of that as part of our regular school visits. So consequently, we had to go quickly and find another place or turn the money back. Obviously, we didn't want to turn the money back. We want mobile services to go on. We selected Cerritos Preschool, which is located in the CDBG block grant area. It's at an old bookmobile site. And we're now up and running. By the time we could get into the school, it was January. So the program has been running for a month. So far, it is running very well. It's kind of our test. We want to expand the program to more GUSD sites, and ultimately, once, this is years down the road, Head Start is back, and they are coming back very slowly, to include them as well. This is a real necessary program. Children between the ages of 3 and 5, this is when their brain grows the most, they develop, and we have a chance to make a real impact on them, gaining pre-reading skills, reinforcing what the schools are doing, and doing what we can to help ensure that they become good readers and good students, and ultimately better citizens for Glendale. The studies all prove that kids with the more opportunities they have to have support, this kind of support in their lives, the better that they end up doing. So we've run the program kind of on a shoestring. We did turn some of the money back this year. The library's been covering staffing, and we spent all the money we're spending it still, on the collection to use with the kids. We've downsized to a paperback collection to make it lighter weight to move around because we no longer have a vehicle. However, I do anticipate in the next year that will change. And the previous bookmobile collection was not suitable for preschools. It was aimed at school-age children, so we did have to build an entirely new collection, which we're still doing. It's harder to find good materials in paperback. So, I entertain any questions?
Thank you so much. Mr. Cornell, any questions?
I'll go here. Just wanted to ask you, have you always been at Cerritos? That's where you started.
That's where the bookmobile did start.
Right.
Yes, it did.
I wanted to ask you, reading over the packet on your future plans when you're with Head Start, is this going to throw the projections for what you had in mind out the window, or can you still proceed at your end?
Well, we're not including Head Start in the plans right now because the dust just simply has not settled there. Okay. I was with the Head Start parents group last night at the Lexington site. I had assumed, because they had a lovely space there in the YWCA building on Lexington, that they had been back. They're just now coming back into their classrooms. The management company that's managing Head Start is a temporary company. They won't know for a year who the permanent manager. It may be this company, it may be another company. I guess this is how Head Start's site. I don't know the politics of Head Start. So I don't want to include them in any definite plan. We'll get them to the library by other means, but we won't be able to take mobile services until they're more settled. It's just a big problem, and they need to solve it first before we can enter in some sort of formal partnership.
Yes, I share your pain in that, especially in that area where education, and first of all, with the reading program, is so vital.
It is.
And I share it, and we wish you well. I'm quite sure with your staff and that of that you people you work with, that you'll find a way to challenge us and work through it. But
we're
yes,
trying.
I share your pain on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sinanian, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi. Last year you asked for $35,000, approved only for $9,452. How did that impact your scope of work?
It impacted it greatly. I was very lucky. There was kind of a floater staff. So we were able to cover the staff expenses. Also, if you'll notice my contribution as the manager, I've taken over a lot more of the clerical stuff, and I've really got to get out of that business, unfortunately. We've been real lucky that we were able to. We are asking.
Do you mean you were able to with the funds that were allocated to you with the 9,000?
Right, because you weren't paying for staff. We put it all towards books. And this year we are asking for some staffing costs because no longer going to, it was one of those weird situations where there was an extra body in anticipation of somebody moving on to something else, and now they're moving on and we're going to lose that body.
Yeah. And one of the staff comments, weakness comments, was that the project implementation depends 100% on CDBG funds. And I saw the response said that we're looking for other sources. Is there an update to that? Or you?
Well, I think the library director is doing all she can. She has said that she will try and find whatever funds she can for us. She is making that commitment, which she was not making at the time I wrote the grant app. It was pretty much, we've got to get the grant or we can't do this. I think she realizes we've done a lot of visioning with our community, and one of the things that's really important to this community is early childhood education. So that was a good pat on the back for us, because I think she's much more receptive to redistributing the funds so that she can help us out.
And one last question deals with the almost catastrophic cut in the funds that we have this year. In light of that, will the program survive if you're unable to supplement whatever it is that we're able to provide you with additional funds from somewhere else?
At this time, I can't really answer that question. We do have the collection. I think the program could survive, but it may look different. I just don't know. I have a lot of ideas about how we can keep this going. We've been using personal vehicles to transfer the books. We do have money put aside for a vehicle, much smaller than the previous, but it will work just fine. In fact, it works better for us because it's easier to park and all kinds of things. And it'll depend upon that as well. I feel so strongly about this that I've taken money out of the central children's room part-time hours and made the people on the desk longer to cover the help I need with the bookmobile. And, we've all been real creative at the library about trying to do as much as we can with our limited funds. And so far, we've been pretty successful. I anticipate we'll make it work somehow.
A real quick question, if I may.
Sure.
This issue was sort of a pivotal issue with respect to your project, either last year or the year before that, where one of the criteria for CDBG funds is to make sure that there's no duplication of effort, there's no duplication of programs, because we do have very limited funds and such. And we had this question of whether Cerritos had a library, didn't have a library, and it was clarified that Cerritos definitely had a library. I know it's a small library, relatively speaking, but I just want to give you the chance to address that right now.
Okay.
Because it will become
They do have a library, and it's very much like the library that the bookmobile used to bring in, why we're no longer going. But it does not address the needs of the preschool child. Their funds have gone to address the needs of school children, because that's the biggest population they serve. We buy things that deal with concepts that by the time a child hits kindergarten, like ABCs, they know. They know squares, circles, triangles. They get the idea how a book works. They don't need as basic a material as. Now, we're dealing with the ages 3 and 4, so these are very young children. And the school libraries, to be quite honest, have almost $0 to spend. The chances of them rectifying that situation are slim to none.
Okay. So just to clarify, yours is purely preschool children?
Purely preschool.
Okay,
we serve nobody else with these materials.
Thank you.
Thank you. My question is about the amount that was spent this year. I think you were allocated, last year you were allocated this year, 6,800, and you only spent 139. And I understand that the program officially started January.
Right.
So you have some extra fund to be
Most of
used-
those funds have been spent. Those
Oh, okay.
invoices are pending. I couldn't start ordering books until we officially had the MOU signed and everything was ready to go, and that was pretty much late December. So I started ordering books immediately. I had a small pot of money that the city council gave the library some extra funds, and they did give me a small amount for the bookmobile that I had spent so I could get it up and going immediately in January. But a lot of those books are now just coming in. It takes, a lot of them were special order because they're paperback and because of the nature of the books. It takes them longer to get in here. I think I've spent pretty much everything but about 1,000 something, and that's, I've got a list ready to order that will pretty
I
much
see.
spend all that.
Okay, and I noticed that your the amount that you're requesting this year, 7,600 roughly, says they go to purchase for children's book.
Right.
Is there a way you can collaborate with community large libraries that you can check out books from them and not purchase it? And I mean,
We're the large, this is run out of the Central Library. We're the largest library. Most of the materials at the Central Library are hardback materials that makes them a lot heavier, a lot harder to transport. Those materials are heavily used at the Central Library. For them to give us a collection or share their collection would be a hardship for that library. By buying the paperback books, number one, they are cheaper. And because these books aren't going home, they're staying in classrooms, and even when we get the vehicle and the kids check out the books themselves, because of their age and the limits to their responsibility, they will stay in the classroom. The paperbacks stay in much better condition. So this is basically money to add to the collection. It's very small at the moment. We need more books with preschoolers. You can't, you give a sixth grader a novel, well, you've got them for their entire 3 weeks. You give the preschooler a picture book, they want 10.
how many kids are we talking about?
The total children, I think it's about 125, 150. I don't have the exact number in my head. It was on the grant app.
Okay.
But,
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, I'll have one further one. Due to the circumstances you mentioned in addressing the Head Start program, will there be an increase in the mobile at Cerritos now? Because I think before you're on a weekly basis, will this maybe alter it and have a bit more time, or are you still going to have that at Cerritos and what you indicated in our packet that you're going to take in the Franklin School as well?
Right. No, and that's all we're doing next year is the Franklin and the Cerritos. They will both be visited every week. And with preschools, you have the problem, you have a morning session and an afternoon session. Or if not, for the all-day kids, you have a big block in the middle of the day that's unavailable to us because, number one, they're napping and eating lunch. So we've broken the days so we can do one site. The plan for next year is to be, one site will be a morning 1 week and an afternoon the next, and then switch it out the following week. So they'll still see us once a week.
Once, fine.
And you are verifying low-income
Yes, yes.
status, correct?
Yes.
Is the school doing that, or
The school is doing that because they get some state sponsorship.
So how would you do this? I mean, if a kid is not qualified, how can you turn away the kid while the friend is getting a book? It's
You
just
don't. It's
you
all.
don't. So you would just provide to everyone?
As long as the school, CDBG has been happy with, as long as the school meets a certain criteria. It's the way it's always worked with the book
So it's not per child, it would go
No.
with the school?
It's site-specific.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Okay, next we have Glendale Youth Alliance for the Youth Employment Program.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Karina Gregorian. I'm the Community Development Supervisor for the Glendale Youth Alliance. The Glendale Youth Alliance is the only organization in the city of Glendale that operates employment programs and provides training and supportive services for the youth of our community. We serve extremely low-income youth. Some of the youth we serve are on the verge of being homeless. Some have disabilities. Some are foster youth. Some of these kids are paying for the bills. Their parents are laid off, and they're the sole provider of the household. We have a proven history of successfully getting youth off the streets into the workforce to be productive members of our workforce and breaking the cycles of poverty, getting the right training to have them succeed in the future. There's a huge community need. We see more and more youth coming to us for employment services as well as for other services, whether it's food, it's work attire, it's medical assistance that they need. So the need in the community is definitely huge. It's not shrinking. As you know, unemployment is probably the most pressing issue in the U.S. right now. We have successfully executed over 15 CDBG grants, and 85% of our funding is leveraged through other sources. So I believe we've proven that we can effectively operate these programs and get results in the lives of these youth. I have asked one of our youth participants to share her experience. So if I may, Roxanne is here to share her story.
Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Roxanne Macias. I'm 19 years old. I've been in the system since I was a little baby till, you could say, 2011. I've been in foster homes, and it's been rough. You could say I haven't got the golden spoon. I had to work to achieve what I want to be, not like my mom. I graduated high school early in 2009. I graduated when I was 17. I'm attending Pierce College in Woodland Hills. And the way I heard about GYA Glendale is I was looking for employment, and I was in the process of emancipating of the system. And I had given them a call. Somebody referred me to them, and they said, call this person, and they'll help you out. So I give them a call, and they told me to come in as soon as I could. And I went, and they helped me with step by step. They helped me throughout the application because I'm not really familiar with the stuff like this. So they support me. They help me with the job. They ask you what I like to work with, and I like to work with. I work with animals since I've been with them. They help me in different ways, not just find me a job, but support me of outside. I'm actually in a transitional housing right now, and I moved in November, and at that moment I was getting a job at the animal shelter in Burbank. I literally pay rent, and I'm literally on my own now, so they help me with food. Like around Christmas, I had no food in my fridge. One of their employees volunteered their church to come over my apartment and donate food for me and my roommate. Dealing with this program, I really appreciate it. They helped me in so many ways, not just helping me get employed and show me so many skills that I could do that I didn't know, but they showed me in different, like with clothing, with food, and helping, knowing that a youth could have another chance and feel like they could do something in their life instead of being put down throughout their whole life. That's like, I'm like very grateful for having them, dealing with them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's share your story. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruthie Burrell, and I work with DCFS. I'm a transitional housing case manager, and most of the kids that we have in Burbank have no work experience, so Glendale Youth Alliance has been a blessing because they provide our youth with work experience and a means of earning an income, and Roxanne is actually one of the youth that I supervise, so I am so grateful for their assistance.
Wonderful. Well, we visited your facility, and I'm familiar with your work. You're doing an amazing job and providing all kinds of education and access for this youth to better their future, and so it's wonderful. But you are aware of the situation this year with a 35% cut, so it's going to be a little tough for us to accommodate and try to allocate funds as requests. So we'll try our best, but I'm sure our committee is capable of, dealing with the situation. And I will start with Mr. Cornell, if you have any questions.
Okay. Corinne, I have no questions here. I'm familiar with your program. I've been on site seeing your operation, seeing the efficient staff, seeing the placements, seeing the results that you have and the goals that you achieve. And you're doing a good job. The challenge is to us and seeing what we can do for you here in the extreme financial straitjacket we're in. But kudos to you and your staff for a beautiful job you're doing.
Thank
Yeah, great job. I don't really have too many questions. I do have sort of one thing that came to mind. You were speaking about, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Ruthie Burrell.
Ms. Burrell, you spoke about
Burbank.
individuals in Burbank that were being directed to GYA in Glendale. So I guess one of the requirements for CDBG funds is to serve Glendale residents. You want to talk about that? Explain how that works?
I can talk about it.
Okay.
Some of our grants do serve other cities. So our Workforce Investment Act is focused on serving the Verdugo Consortium. So it's Glendale, Burbank, and La Cañada. So depending on the program, it's different groups that are targeted. But the program that CDBG is paying for, 95% of the youth are Glendale residents.
And I'm even sorry to bring that up. I know it's such an ugly distinction to make, especially in light of the fact that we're talking about youth who are being helped here. It's just to have that out there and give you a chance to address it. That's all.
Sure. It's my first year on board, actually. I'm sorry I haven't been able to come out to the facility, but reading from your description, it sounds like a wonderful program. I'm all for preventing all the problems later on, so helping out the youth and helping them succeed is much more important to me than trying to resolve the problems once the problems have already occurred.
Right.
So my hat's off to you. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Keep doing a good fight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one last question for you. I think you're requesting this year, the amount that you're requesting is to pay for the salary, 2 salaries, 100%, $85,000 each. What are the requirements to become a program coordinator? And this is pretty nice salary, just for this year's sake that we do have short, limited funding. Can you explain that a little bit?
Actually, the salaries are the base salary plus 40% of fringe benefits. And because our organization is tied with the city of Glendale, our staff have the similar benefit structure. So it's not all salaries. I believe it's 43% of the benefits, which is retirement, workers' compensation, insurance, payroll taxes, all of that. And our operational expenditures have gone up through the years. So, and uncertainty in fundings across the board makes it really challenging to operate the program. But we do have a small staff, and they do work very efficiently. They're very passionate about what they do.
And volunteers? Do you use volunteers to...
Because we work with youth, and each case is very confidential, we can't allow volunteers to access personal data. But as far as board members and assisting with community fundraising efforts and so forth, we do have volunteers. But in the daily operation, it's strictly limited to our staff.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great program.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Next, we have Ascencia for the Homeless Outreach and Case Management Program.
All right. Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. I'm Natalie Profont-Camoro. I'm the Executive Director of Ascensia. And we have a request for $43,962 to fund a majority of one outreach case management position. This position is essential to our efforts to end chronic and veteran homelessness here in Glendale. Our goal is to serve 100 people, and this would amount to about $440 in CDBG funding per person served. This position also leverages other federal funding sources, including the HUD Supportive Housing Program and the Department of Veteran Affairs Supportive Services for Veteran Families. The outreach program has evolved over the years to place less emphasis on the volume or number of people that we serve and focus more on moving vulnerable homeless people to permanent housing. In 2011, we joined the 100,000 Homes campaign and made a commitment to end veteran homelessness in Glendale. And the outreach team has been instrumental in helping us make progress in that effort. Ascensia currently has CDBG funding for outreach services. For this program year, our goal is to serve 100 people during the year and enroll 65 in the Access Center. We have served 118 people to date, so we've already met the goal in the first 6 months. We also indicated that we would be helping 65 or 65% of those people enroll at the Access Center. To date, all 118 people that we've mentioned are served by the Access Center. We have a secondary goal of connecting people to mainstream resources and services. I want to emphasize that it's very important that this is a first step, that our goal is for many of the folks who are able to work to get them a job ultimately, but often they need to get the mainstream services and resources in place first before they can move forward on that. 49% was our goal for that, and that was of 32 people. To date, we have assisted 47 people in accessing mainstream services, but because the number of people that we've brought into the Access Center is so large, the percentage is lower. It's at 40%. What is not reflected in our report, because of the way we collect the data and it's processed through the HMIS system, are the people that have been reached with our outreach team, but we haven't done an intake yet because they are not ready to come in for services. In the first half of this program year, 51 people have been contacted by the outreach team but have not yet come into the Access Center for an intake. We are continuing to work with them, knowing it can take years to gain the trust required for a person to come in for services. Last week, we had a real victory with a man we were trying to get into rehabilitation and housing. I brought our lead outreach case manager, Alfred Hernandez, here today to tell you more about it. Alfred is a certified substance abuse counselor who has 10 years experience in recovery services. He has also 6 years experience working with people with chronic mental illness, and he's a veteran. He's been with our organization for all 5 years and actually predates us. He was working for Project Achieve when it was providing services in the community. So I'll turn that over to Alfred now.
Good afternoon. My name is Alfred Hernandez. I'm the lead out case manager for Ascensia. I just want to share a little bit of what we do at Ascensia regarding outreach. We do focus on the chronically homeless. We've worked with this gentleman. He's a veteran. He's been here in Glendale for over 10 years, homeless. We've tried to get him in rehab past few couple of years, and he's refused. He also has a lot of health problems. He's been hospitalized 3 times within the last 45 days here at Glendale Adventist. I say in the past 3 years, he's probably been hospitalized many times. But however, last week we were very happy that he finally reached out to us and asked us if we could take him to the veterans and to the VA and put him in rehab. So that's where he's at now. So he's working on his issues with his alcoholism and also with his mental health issues. That's all I got for right now. So I could answer some questions if you guys got any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Cornell, do you have any questions?
Yeah, nice to have you back. I was looking at the packet here, and I think you had an average about 412 last year that you served. I was wondering, and I know it's an increase due to the economic straitjacket that the community is in, what percentage of that count are veterans?
It was actually not a large number. I know that when we did our registry, we found 7 people who claimed to be veterans, but then when we looked at the definition of a veteran, a few of those fell away because we wanted to count veterans of the U.S. Armed Forces, and they were veterans of other countries. The homeless count found 38 veterans, which is 9%. And that's pretty consistent for many communities.
Because I know you have among your staff a special staff member. I think his name was Alfred Hernandez. That's
Alfred.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I thought I heard it, but I didn't want to stick my neck out here and be incorrect. That which is good that you have someone that who is a vet himself, who knows the needs, and to me, although you refer them to appropriate agencies to deal with that, that's a growing number that I see among us that is growing, and I'm happy to see that your organization is dealing with that.
Well, and we're really helped by the federal priority to end veteran homelessness by 2015, so we have more resources to do that work. That's why we have the new VA funding. We just got that last summer. We got $100,000 from the Department of Veteran Affairs, and we've applied for renewal funding as well. This outreach team works in conjunction with the bigger access center. And so what I really like about this program is they're not just out in the field static and away from other services. They're fully integrated with the work that we do at the access center. And I think that's how we're able to be more effective in moving people off the streets and into the service that they need. But as Alfred was saying, some folks it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen in a year because they're just not ready, and so we have to continue to build that relationship so we can get them to a place where they are ready to come in for help.
I wanted to ask you, I think I brought it out, I believe it was in 2009 when I was having treatment over the cancer center here on Colorado near Everett, and I happened to see a homeless person, and since it was during business hours, I was able to contact her office. I believe I spoke to Kathy. Has your number or a off-hours number been solicited around to the people that are going to come in contact with these people? I would say most likely firsthand, that the people we're going to see is the ones who are going to be called are the police to get them out of here. Are these police department pretty well educated on this matter, so that instead of hauling them off to jail, that they're going to call you people instead?
We have a really good relationship with the police department, and they do work closely with our outreach team. We also have our main number, which is, as you said, open during business hours. We have a Google Doc voicemail number. The problem with the off hours, and the reason we don't do this anymore, is we don't have a place to put someone after hours, and so it didn't make sense to have our staffing loaded up at a period of time when they couldn't really be effective in connecting that person to a service. If, for example, we had a low-demand 24-hour program that would take people, then it would make sense to have that outreach at those hours or on the weekends. But what we were finding is then we meet them and we say, okay, now come back on Monday. So we decided it would be a better use of our resources to focus on dealing with people during the week, and ideally we get them before those businesses close or those service agencies close.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Yes, I clearly can see that you're collaborating with many agencies in the area. I'm sure with the hospitals as well.
Yes.
Right? Because most of the times this homeless patients, I would say, some of them with alcoholism and mental illnesses, do end up at the emergency room. So I understand that you're very well connected, and that's great, and it's clearly a priority for us. Especially now with the amount of money that we have, we really look into organizations and programs that are the safety net, are the front line, and the numbers are increasing, as you said, so your service is definitely a must in this community. So I applaud you for providing the service. I don't have any further questions.
I'd just like to speak to that point because I've been
Sure.
very excited about a new effort that we've been working with the hospital. So the Glendale Healthier Community Coalition has been working on the hospital side to identify the recidivism of people moving in and out of the hospitals. And as Alfred mentioned, our client was one of them. We're looking at mechanisms to find the high utilizers who are homeless or unstably housed so that we can do a better job of intervening and putting them in housing, because the studies are showing that once somebody gets housed, their need to go to the emergency room and visit the hospitals decreases significantly. And we do have some folks that we're looking at some point. I'm looking forward to revealing the numbers and the data about how that's been affecting the local community. But I've been really pleased with the response from the local hospitals. They've been really exceptional partners.
And I saw your program with Kim Milstein on, I'm sure that was you, with Camille Levy.
Oh,
had
on the
a
Larizarian
TV
Forum?
program. It was an outreach educational program through Headline with Glendale Adventist. So I'm glad that you're partnering and you're reaching out to the community, you're educating the community, and all these organizations are coming together, for this great cause. So
we need that.
Glad. Yes. Mr. Oganessian?
Sure. Very nice to have you guys here. I only had one concern, and it's more concern on your side. Obviously, the project is a very well worthwhile project. But you said something about you had planned on helping about 100 people within 6 months, and you've already surpassed that?
We looked at helping 100 people for the year.
And you've already surpassed that?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you supposed to manage for the rest of the year?
Well, they'll still keep coming. We'll still helping. The reason we set the number lower is we really wanted to make sure we were budgeting enough time to do the intensive work that's necessary. When you have somebody, for example, a chronic alcoholic who you have to repeatedly work with and take to rehab, or we have to visit him in the hospital. I don't know how many times staff went over to the emergency room and went over to the hospital to visit with him to check on his well-being and figure out what our next steps were going to be. So the reason we identified lower numbers is simply that we thought that would give us the room to do that kind of work. So it's a hard thing to predict. We know people are still going to need help, and it doesn't mean we stop. Though we hit 118, we're going to stop helping people. He still gets called to go out for service.
No, I got you. What would you say? I'm sure you've been with. How long has this program been around? How long has this program been around?
Path to Achieve Glendale has been around as Path to Achieve Glendale for, I think, since 2006.
So about 6 years.
Yeah, but before that, it was Project Achieve.
You got to speak into the mic.
And before that, it was Project Achieve, and that was there like from 2000.
I'm sure, and you've been on board since then?
Yes, I've been on board since 2003.
Okay. Have you seen a dramatic increase, especially in the city of Glendale, of homeless people?
Within the last 5 years, there's been a big drastic change as far as our agency and our agency helping the chronically homeless and families out there. I've seen a big change in that, a more positive change.
More positive change?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Well, I think, okay.
My question
He's
was...
asking about the numbers.
Have the numbers gone up? I'm assuming you should have gone up.
The numbers have definitely gone up.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll see what the city's report is saying now, that because of the changes to the winter shelter program,
Yes.
that might affect the numbers. I think what Alfred's referring to is the manner in which we're operating the program. We have much more flexible entry requirements, and so people who had been around when the program was operating previously, they weren't getting connected and served because they weren't meeting program criteria. And so we've relaxed some of the standards so we can get them in the door and start to begin that process of helping them.
Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinanian.
I have just a totally non-substantive question. So what brought about the change in the name?
Well, we were originally affiliated with Path Partners.
Sure.
And they were going through a restructuring, and when we were looking at how we operate and how they operate, we are a very localized full-service organization, and it really made more sense organizationally for us to separate. And we had reached a point where the board of directors had matured, I think, enough to really take on the autonomy that would mean. And so giving up that relationship meant, at least that legal relationship, meant that we needed to change the name and branding. Okay. And so we went through a process with our volunteers and with our staff and clients and the board to figure out what would be the best way to capture who we are. So that's what I...
Essentia as an ascension?
As lifting people out of homelessness. It was derived from Latin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just human curiosity, that's all.
Well, thank you for asking. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
Let's take a moment and do the evaluation forms. I was looking at our schedule. We're running on time, but we still are missing that one applicant, correct?
That is correct. We're currently about 4 minutes ahead of schedule, but we are missing that.
Okay, now what is the policy on an organization that is late, very late, or, I mean, do we accommodate them, or do we have a set standard?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, that's really up to the chair and the committee how you want to
They must not
address
need the
that.
money then.
We have called them, and they are aware, and they were notified of their appointment time.
Okay.
They must not need the money as much.
If I remember, about 2 years ago, one of the applicants didn't come. I think it was Husk, if you remember that, Mr. Curio. And we still thought, we'll give them a shot, we'll deliberate. Obviously, if they don't come, they don't make a presentation, that's going to make a difference.
Right,
So,
and it would be based on what we have in the application.
Yeah, exactly. So it's to their detriment that they don't show up.
Right.
Will have an impact, but we can decide what to do with that.
Thank you.
Next, we have Glendale Commission on the Status of Women for Rosie Goes to Wall Street, Camp Rosie.
Hi, good morning, Committee Chair Member Markarian, members of the committee staff. My name is Christine Babumian. I work for the City of Glendale as an administrative associate, and I'm here as staff for the Commission on the Status of Women. With me today, I have from the Commission Vice Chair Denise Miller, and also with us is Mary Mukartumian, who's a former Camp Rosie graduate, if I may. First off, I just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for this opportunity and for taking our grant into consideration. I know you're tasked with a very stressful job today, so thank you. Camp Rosie has received funding from CDBG for the past 3 years, and it has been in existence now for 5 years. This summer will be the 6th summer that Camp Rosie will be occurring, and to date we've served almost 300 girls, which is great. It was developed, this program, for young women between the ages of 12 and 18, and it's really there as a holistic program to help expose girls to what the real world is like, about financial literacy, relationships, and health, if I really have to put it in a nutshell. With the foundation that we lay for financial literacy, the girls learn about the concept of credit. How do you budget? What really goes into supporting yourself once you become an adult? And so throughout the camp, they have a financial literacy curriculum, and at the end of the camp, they go to Finance Park, where they actually are given a real-life situation as far as you're a mother of 2, you make $35,000 a year, and they have to put together a budget, and it really is an eye-opening experience for these girls. The other component that we focus on is relationships. This includes how to have a healthy relationship with yourself, how to have a healthy relationship with others, and one really unique component of the camp focuses on teen dating violence, showing girls what the abuse cycle looks like and how to identify this before ever getting caught up in the abusive cycle. The girls also learn about health, and this includes fitness and nutrition, self-defense classes, CPR, so how to really be healthy and take care of yourself and stay safe. The girls also learn about political participation. They get exposed to careers that are typically male-dominated, such as police, fire, entrepreneurship, and They also go to the local college campus here, GCC, and get to learn about some options for them after high school. So Camp Rosie is free for all participants. Thanks to grant funding, we've been able to provide this at no cost, and no girl has ever been turned away. We collaborate with many local organizations, some of that you've seen here today, such as GYA, the School District, Door of Hope, the PTA, and the STAR program at the Glendale Police Department. If you would entertain me for a moment, I have Mary here today who would like to just share a couple words, if that's all right. Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary. I'm currently a senior at Glendale High School, and I came to Camp Rosie. I came for 2 summers, and I just overall really loved it. Right as I walked through the door, everyone is so nice and so friendly. When I met Kathy, she was like great. She was really inspirational. I mostly learned basically about finance. Like we went to the finance park. We learned. I turned out to be single. No kids, with like $30,000 a year, and I budgeted that to like limited myself as to how many things I'm going to buy, how much money I'll have left over. I learned about credit and taxes, sales tax, property, and income tax. Really helped me because I know I'm going to need it once I turn 18. I'm going to get my credit card and and use it wisely. Yes, and use it wisely. I also think the exercise is very important. We had All About You boot camp come in and show us how to keep a healthy diet. They actually helped us by giving a paper, and we would write down healthy choices and unhealthy choices and see like what we could fix and help. We also had the self-defense, which really helped because you never know, you might need it. You're a woman. Yeah, basically that's. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We are familiar with your program. And are you done, or do you have more comments?
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We are familiar with your program, and it was interesting because a few months ago I was just flipping channels and I saw the entire program televised, and it was just amazing because now I'm watching this entire program and I'm so happy that I had something to do with it, if if that counts. But it was a great program, and it seemed like all the girls were happy and they were getting along, and it's the variety of categories of the educations that they receive. It's amazing, especially when it comes to self-awareness and seeing the sign and recognizing the signs of abuse at the young age. I think that's what we really need to emphasize, and not to take any of these signs for granted and become a victim in the future. So I'm very excited to see this program continue. And having said all that, you are aware of the cuts, obviously, and we have to be, very careful in how we delegate and how we kind of allocate the money. So we will do our best, and I will go to Mr. Sinanian if you have any questions or comments.
Really, no questions. I really like the program. Also, I've been on this board since you started coming. So this is my 4th year. So here we go. I've been with you the whole time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if someone's thought of the program in terms of, well, it's a gender. Why do we have a gender-specific program? I think, if anything, it's a strength. It obviously provides skills and training in gender-specific issues, addressing some shortcomings that exist in this society. So I think there's no issue there, absolutely, whatsoever. Keep up the good work, and we're going to do our best to help you out as much as we can under the current financial circumstances.
Completely understand. Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Cornell?
Yeah, I'd just like to add to comments of my colleague here, and especially the fiscal management that you have. And with your committee, I know Ms. Devine is part of that, as well as the team effort that you have within your commission. You're doing a beautiful job. It's a necessity. The results are here. That's what I look up, the goals, and you attend them pretty well. And that's one of my key elements that I look at here. And just one question here on the teen dating aspect. I think that was taken off your curriculum a while back. Is that put back on so that is discussed among the ladies?
Yes, Committee Member Cornell, as long as I have been a staff member for the commission, I believe prior to that, but I can only speak to my experience. Since the summer of 2009, teen dating violence has most certainly been a key component that we convey to the girls, and we make sure that we never skip that. There really isn't too much of a cost associated with that, and even if there was, the take-home message is much too important to miss.
That is my question.
Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Mr. Oganes?
I'd love to support the program for a couple of major reasons. Number one, I commend you guys for doing what you're doing. Number two, I see that you're only using 32% of your budget from CDBG, which is commendable. That means you're getting outside resources, you're working outside. And also from that 32%, you're only using 50% of that for payroll. The rest you're actually using for activities and equipment and this and that, which is very commendable. Whoever's budgeting this is doing a phenomenal job. Good work. I hope we can get you every penny you need. If we can get you more, I'd love to get you more.
Thank you.
Good job.
This is a great program established by, leaders, women, such as Mrs. Devine, Denise Miller, and I know they're very passionate about this program. So we'll do our very best to look
you so
into
much.
possibilities. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Do the evaluation form, and I think we go to public comments if
That's
have any
correct.
cards. Okay.
I have a question for staff here. The number 10, I see, did not make it at all. Is that correct? In attendance as far as speaking? Number 10 for the All for Health Incorporated?
Yes, Mr. Cornell, I think that's the one we discussed. That's up to the chair and the committee to decide how they...
But they did not make a presence at?
No.
Okay,
they had not.
I just want to make my note here. Okay.
Yeah, they were a no-show, and I think
Okay, so
we can
no-show.
discuss it later. All right. Rosie. Yeah.
Your mic is not on. And next
All right,
next on the schedule is public comments. I don't have any cards at this time. Next would be lunch.
All right, so we will take lunch and come back at 1 o'clock. I know it says 1:15, but if we have the applicants here at 1, we would like to start, 1 o'clock. Very good. We'll be back.